A bass sitting right on the bottom, right there. So that fish is probably catchable. See how it's sitting right above the bottom? We're not going to try to catch him right now. We're here pre-fishing for the Bassmaster tournament, and you notice, if you look at the rods on the deck, I have 3 rods out: a whip bait, a spinner bait, and a topwater. So in these early morning hours, we're going to concentrate, just try to catch some reaction fish. We're here about a week early, so we're just trying to get a feel for what these fish are doing, and we're just going to try to catch some reaction fish. We first stop out here on the Sac Arm. We're fishing a big flat. It's a little bit windy for the spook, so you'll notice that when I throw the spook, when it's real windy, you can watch the bait. I don't know if you can see it out there or not, but I'm going to rip this bait pretty hard. You notice that I'm ripping the slack pretty hard. It's because it's windy. There's a little bit of chop on the water. I really want this bait to pop. So almost better for maybe like a buzz bait from water like this. If this wind stays up, that's going to be our next choice. I ripped it so hard I got all of my line caught. There's a lot of fish down there on this flat. I'm going to go work up here a little bit shallower. I think it might be a little bit too rough to work topwater bait right now. It'd be nice if this breeze stays up all day. I didn't catch topwater fish yesterday until like 2 o'clock. So I threw it a little while in the morning, didn't get anything, and then I started drop shotting it. And Carolina rig, and I caught quite a few. I'd like to catch a fish or two. It'd be nice. We haven't had much rain here up in the Redding area for a long period of time, so the water's been receding about 6 inches a day. Something pretty important to know when you're coming out pre-fishing for a tournament is what's going on with the lake, what's going on with the weather. We have a pretty stable weather pattern until about Sunday. It's supposed to rain, but the water's been going out about 6 inches a day. So what happens when that happens, kind of like the outgoing tide, it pulls all these fish off the bank, and these spotted bass and largemouth and smallmouth all come out here, suspend, and you can see, if you could see the meter from here, there's a bunch of fish on the bottom. These yellow marks, can you see these down here? Oh. What we found here is a lot of these fish are out suspended off the bank. There's just tons of shad out here, and that's all suspended off the bank too. So most of the fish have been way off the bank, out a little bit deeper, 20 or 30 feet deep. And a lot of them are on the bottom, or near the bottom, and you're not going to be able to catch these fish on a reaction bait. So it's when you're pre-fishing for a tournament, especially a bigger tournament, it's real important to be able to catch some fish on a reaction bait, because you don't know what's going to happen with the weather. You know, I could come out here and drop shot some of these fish, or throw a jig or a Carolina rig and probably catch some, but what happens when you get a nice windy day, some cloud comes over, it rains, you know, especially during that tournament, you know, you're still going to be able to catch them drop shotting, but the big ones are going to come up and bite on a spinner bait or a buzz bait or a topwater or a rip bait. And if you don't know how to catch those fish or where to catch those fish, you're going to kind of be at a loss sitting there out there shaking a worm while everybody else is getting those big ones. You can catch them, but what happens when it gets nasty, you know, that's when Gary Dobbins wins the tournament, you know, it's because he knows how, when, and where to catch those reaction fish. You'll never ever learn unless you're doing it. I'm just dying to throw something down on those fish down the bottom. 30 foot of water, some nice bass down there. Big cloud of bait. See, it's yellow, that's a more dense So that bait's packed pretty good. There's some fish down below it down here. You know, you see a lot of fish jump and you'll hear that splash. But most of the time when you hear that big splash, it's a carp jumping. The reason a carp jump is because they're down there sucking up the rocks and they need to jump up, and so they work the rocks through their system. But when you hear a bass, when bass come up and jump, what's one thing you want to look for, especially this time of year, is you'll hear a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And you'll look back and you'll see multiple splashes, and it's usually the bait fish jumping up and then the bass trying to get it. And that's when you see that happen, you want to try to throw on top of them. But if you hear that big splash, just don't worry about it. It's usually a carp. Big gold things jumping out of the water. You know, if you're fishing a tournament, you know, you want to throw this topwater because a lot of times in a lake like this, all you need is one good bite to have a good day, and then you just go out and get some little ones. You know, 1 3-4 pounder, you're looking pretty good. We finally got a little reaction fish here. This is the kind of fish we're looking for right here. This is the kind of fish we get on the reaction bait. Here he comes. Nice spot. Oh, hey, buddy. You can see what this guy's eating. This is about the same size as the one that come out and hit the top water. Oh, man. The limit of these guys would be great. Nice 2.5 pound spot. And here's what he's eating. This one still looks alive. Poor guys, man, they have to eat a whole lot of these to get any kind of meal, so that rip bait probably looks really good to them. Oh, I just had one, hammered it. If you look at this point, you look out on what we got here is a nice big flat point, and you have wind, which is making the current. The current's naturally going this way anyway down to the dam, but the wind is making a little bit more current come roll around this side here. So just a natural place for these fish to sit right in this, almost a little eddy, just waiting for the bait, and the plankton's coming by and the bait's sitting in here and everything. Just a perfect little ambush spot for them. We already caught one here, and then I just had another one hit it. It came off. So we had one blow up on the top water, but I think with the way the water is, it looks a little bit better for a rip bait or spinner bait. So we're tossing a rip bait, and we got one on it. See if we can get a couple more before we get out of here. All right, well, here's what we're starting out with. We're just going to kind of pre-fish with some reaction bait, some top water spinner bait, rip bait, and from the start we're just going to go pick out these long wind-blown points. We're going to try to pick out the biggest one. This one's already marked with a big fish, and now here's the arrow. We're at the next one, so we're going to fish this one, then we're going to run up to the next one, and then we're going to keep doing these long points. We're just going to kind of pick them out, try to see if we can come up with some kind of pattern here. So we're going to try this one now and see what happens. Oh! My heart stopped. That fish just whacked it. Big, giant spot. Man, that thing looked like about 4 pounds. Man, oh man. He missed it again, just like that one on the last spot. He was right next to the boat, too. I think if the boat was a little further away, we could have caught him. He would have come back up again. The wind is pushing the water. It's making these waves, and the wind is pushing the water this way, making a current. So just like any body of water with a current, the fish are going to position behind something and wait for the bait or wait for whatever to swim by, because bass are ambush type predators. They're going to be, so there's a little hump out here. You probably can't see it, but it comes up to about 5 foot of water and then drops right off, and those fish are just sitting right back here, just like we had that big spot come up and blow up on this top water. We're about to get one on a rip bait here in a minute if they don't come up and hit this thing again. All right, we're going to leave this spot. Something important about throwing reaction baits, especially first thing in the morning, is the shade line. You want to have the shade line. The fish are a little more active here. So we're going to try to run this line and run these next couple of points before the sun comes over and hits the water. So hopefully we can get a couple more good ones. Okay. Hey, after you use a spook for a while, and you'll notice it's not walking very good, it kind of pulls straight. What I do is I'll take the line and I move it down the eye, so it's just about vertical with that, and I just tighten it up, hold it like that, and then when it sits, now this will pull it down a little bit better, and it'll give a little better walking action. So you just pull the line down. I use braid slides up a little bit easier, but if you use mono will hold down a little bit easier and get a little better action. So that'll help you make your spook walk a little bit better. Well, we went to 2 of these points, and both of them had good fish on them, and then we went to 3 more that didn't have good fish. So we're trying to come up with a pattern here. These nice rounded sloping points didn't have any fish, but the rounded sloping ones with a little piece of structure on them, that's the ones that had the good fish. And we fished 2 of those that had them, and 3 of these just round sloping, no structure, flat point spots, no fish. So trying to get a pattern together, especially for throwing this reaction bait. What we're going to do now is we're going to look around. We're going to try to find some points that have a little bit of structure. Now, I haven't been to Shasta in a few years, so all this is kind of new. The lake is down about 100 feet, so kind of a new lake for me. So we're actually just running around just trying to find some stuff that looks good and throw the kind of baits that we can catch the good quality fish on. Now, if you notice, we're starting out this morning. Now, we're not just looking for everyday fish. We're not looking for any 12 inches. We're looking for 2, 3, or 4, 5 pounders. So you notice the baits I have on the deck are all reaction baits. I got 4 rods out now. I started with 3. I pulled out a swim bait just to see if I could get some good ones on that. So I didn't even bring out worm rod or a drop shot rod out because I didn't even want to be tempted to pick it up until the sun comes up to where I kind of have to, I won't say break down, but to where I have to transition into catching those smaller fish and the deeper fish a little bit later on. But that's why I just brought these rods out, and I'm not even tempted to pull another one out of the box. You know, if we get some weather during this tournament, I could do really good because I really love throwing reaction baits, topwater, spinner baits. And if we get incoming front, a lot of weather, you know, I'll be out throwing these baits, and hopefully a lot of other guys will be throwing worms and, you know, catching those little ones when I can get those bigger ones on a reaction bait. So I think if we get some weather, I'll do pretty good. If the bite's really, really tough, I think I'll do pretty good because I'm pretty good at just catching fish. What little one? That's a little. See, no, this is a fish, not very big, but what? Look at Mark get hooked on video. You guys are like little stripers. So this point is a little bit different. It's rocky and it comes up real fast. Sorry, buddy. There's the eagle claws in here. We could step good in there. This point comes up real fast, real abrupt. So the other thing, you have a little spot where fish can position. The wind's blowing the current over. Got a nice point, come right over. Hit that little special piece of structure, and there was a fish. So let's see if there's a better fish here. Now when I'm ripping, you'll notice that I'll rip the thing down, and then sometimes I'll let it sit for 10, 15, sometimes even 30 seconds. I may just give it a little whack a couple times. I want to give those fish, especially if they're coming out at 20 or 30 feet, enough time to come up and see it and give them enough time to react on it. So it's nice about using a suspending jerkbait. You don't have to worry about it coming up. We stopped here. I see a little piece of abrupt structure like I want to fish here, but we're stopping a little back, just a little bit further. What I'm trying to do, the sun's about to come over here. I'm just trying to follow as much of the shade line as I can, trying to get to another active fish or two before the sun comes out. Even though I can still catch some topwater fish when the sun comes out, I feel a lot better before. during the low light periods, these fish tend to roam a lot more. The strike zone opens up. Instead of being, you know, a foot or two, it ends up being like 5 or 6 foot. So even though I'm fishing this rip bait along pretty quick, but in between, I'll rip it out there pretty quick, and then in between pauses, I let it sit a little while. So even though I'm ripping it pretty fast, I'm letting it sit long enough, I feel, that the fish have enough time to come up and get it. We'll see how that pans out. We're fishing a little bit of red dirt here. Sometimes on Shasta you get on this red dirt pattern. I'm not exactly sure whether the crawdads like it a little better or exactly what, but there have been actually quite a few times when I'll just catch them on these red dirt banks. So we're trying a little red dirt flat bank. You know, like I said, today we're out pre-fishing. We're kind of out trying some different stuff, out experimenting a little bit, seeing what it takes to get maybe a few better bites. We got a couple of good bites already. We're looking for a couple more. You know, the whole idea about pre-fishing is to come up with a pattern and try to get a pattern of where these fish are, what they're doing. You know, we're a couple weeks out, so if we can figure out where they are now and hopefully kind of follow them through the next couple weeks and see where they go, where they change from, that would be a big plus. So the most important thing is just to get a pattern together. You know, when you're pre-fishing for a tournament, you don't really, spots are not really that big a deal. You know, you're going to have your little spots that are your favorite, but I try not to rely on a spot. I'll try to rely much more on a pattern. You know, if I'm catching them on a cove or a point or, you know, wind-blown point or, you know, a little piece of structure, what kind of structure that is, and then what kind of bait I'm using to catch them on that piece of structure. So pattern is much more important than a spot. When I'm working this spook, I like to work it pretty hard, especially when I'm covering a lot of water. I like it to make that big pop, splash. I think it calls these fish up a little bit better. This is my little quick Carolina rig. I put an egg sinker on there and a bead and then a hook, and I take a little Mojo rubber band and I put the rubber band through the glass bead and that holds it. And then you can also adjust it wherever you want. I'm using 12-pound Suffix DNA. It's a gray colored line, so it's real clear in the water, hardly shows up, and it seems to work out pretty well. Good one too. With that trailer hook on, I wonder if he's on the trailer hook. Yeah. Man, he's a fighter. I don't know how big he is, but he's a fighter. Like hooked in the side on the trailer hook. That's why we put this thing on there. See, now if we didn't have a trailer hook on, it would have been just another strike. Look at that. That's a nice spot. Sorry, buddy. Oh. Oh, that was cool. I wonder if that was the same fish that bit. I wonder if he was. Little guy. Feisty little guy. There he comes. Here you go. Got one on. Oh, no. He's skinny. Skinny didn't spit up a bunch of bait either. That little guy. He's about not even 12 inches. Up in the cove here, I found that most of the bait's getting trapped up in these little coves, and that's where you find some more active fish. Oh, he came off. I thought he was on there. Dang it. There he is. Oh, man. Good one. Oh, it just broke my spinnerbait in half. He's hooked on top of the head. Finally, 3 bites on the spinnerbait, and we got one. Nice guy. 14 inches. There he is. Feels pretty good. May not be that big, but he's a fighter. Oh, he's decent. Had him on the main hook too. He just annihilated it. About 14 inches. We need the pliers. He hit it hard. Okay, let's check them. We'll see. I said 14. I might have been a little short. He's 13 and a half. Close to 14.